Ladies and gentlemen, I reached out to President Hilbert and Chairwoman Page a few weeks back and requested this special meeting of the City Council and the School Board to talk specifically about the Education Compact that the administration has proposed. Today is not about politics, it is solely about children. And I think it's about, as well, the best way we can create a positive outcome for their futures. I think that best way is through a formal commitment from the school board and the city council towards creating those positive outcomes. That is what the Education Compact is, and that's what it has always been. What it is not is not about privatization. It is not about charter schools. It is not about mission creep either. We understand that the power and authority over Richmond Public Schools belongs to the school board. However, now more than ever, we also understand that we can't get to that promised land without us all working together, an all hands on deck approach. So, the Education Compact is pretty simple. Number one, we're calling for quarterly meetings just like this, working together, the city council and the school board and the mayor. We're also requesting the creation of a children's cabinet. Agency heads, agency folks from all throughout city government, whether it's in social services, parks and recreation, anyone in the human services portfolio over in the administration, the school administration, police, all at the table focused on our children. And lastly, the creation of a stakeholder team of nonprofit, parents, teachers, philanthropic, people from the philanthropic community to all focus on outcomes for our children. Let's talk about why this is so important now. I think in the first 6 months of our time of working together, serving together, we have demonstrated a spirit of collaboration that has not been seen before in this city. And with what is the report out of the Virginia Department of Education, the division level review, we now know that we need to work together better than ever to achieve success for not only our city, but for our children. And I think that is, I think we're all urgent to get to that place. Our success, I believe, depends on a formalized framework. If we were working together in a traditional fashion as in the past, then we probably wouldn't be here at this point. And that's why today is very, very important. We get to make a statement, not only to our residents, but to the Commonwealth of Virginia, that we're going to do everything we can to put children of this city first. That means whether we're talking about facilities, we're talking about dollars, we're talking about instruction, we want to put the success of our children before anything. And so you all know that results matter. This is an opportunity to produce positive results for our children. As I've always been saying for the last now, I guess, 6 months, is that this is about talent. The cities that are separating themselves from the pack are those cities who are growing their talent, keeping their talent, and attracting talent. Growing our talent begins with Richmond Public Schools. It begins with our children, our greatest asset for this city. And how do we keep families here in the city? We ensure that they keep great public schools. And how we continue to attract people to the city? We let them know this is a place that you can raise your child. That's what this is about. It's about collaboration. It's about working together. And collectively, we can be the voice for all the children of this city. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to make some brief remarks. I couldn't agree more that this is about our children, but I do want to also thank you, Mayor Stoney, for your leadership in getting this started and formalizing this during your campaign and actually following through on a campaign promise. That's pretty good. Not everyone does that, so thank you for that. Certainly we've had meetings together in the past, but not that many and not through this formalized process. To put forward a funding mechanism for our schools and to also have metrics for accountability And while those aren't worked out yet, I believe that we all appreciate that those are the ultimate goals. And speaking on behalf of council, I believe that we want to play our part. As the mayor said, this isn't mission creep, that we're not interested, city council, running the school system. And even if someone wanted to, that's not our duty. Our duty is to make sure to set the policies of the city that are collaborative relative to our young people. Not just education, but all the services of the city need to be focused on the children in our city. They are a big part of our future. They're all of our future. We hope that other people move into our city, but the fact is that we need to create an environment where everyone, and particularly our children, feel safe, feel secure on our streets, and most of all, get well educated. And I believe that it's only within this framework of stability and security that they're going to thrive in the classroom. So I'm excited about the possibilities of what can happen, and I will now yield the floor to Madam Chairwoman, if you want to say anything, or we whatever here. I want to give her the opportunity to make some more remarks.
Yes, and just to add what I previously stated, I too welcome, thank Mayor Soning for this initiative, and on behalf of the Richmond Public School Board, we are excited. The willingness for us to work together, to come together, because as we know, we have not been at this place in the past. This is an opportunity for all of us, and the focus must be on our children, first and foremost. This must be a shared vision, because we all have a common destination and a common goal. And as stated before, we expect to work together, and we will work together. Because if we do not work together, it's our children who lose out. That's unacceptable. We want to make Richmond Public Schools a choice for all families in the city of Richmond. Not just a few, but all families. And we want to make sure that each and every child in the city of Richmond receive the same opportunity, and we have the positive outcomes that we expect in our children in this positive learning environment. We can no longer have competing interests between our three governing bodies. That's talk of the past. We cannot continue to go down that road. Therefore, there is no need to pass blame or hide our failures. It is time for us to roll up our sleeves and work together. So again, thank you. Thank you again.
Mr. President, I don't know whether or not we need, Dr. Williamson was going to run through the draft resolution, but to me, the resolution is before every one of the members. Right now, we may not need any extra explanation, but I'll leave that to you, sir.
Okay. I believe everyone is familiar with this. I believe we did have copies distributed to the folks here. I'm taking it, maybe not. But I did want to, we can certainly discuss this. I did want to thank in particular Councilman Jones for your leadership and being part of this compact team and your willingness to take on another duty. I know that we're all a little busy, and as chair of the education committee, I appreciate your willingness to step forward. And also want to thank Vice President Newbill for being our other member of the compact team. It's really appreciated. And I know sometimes that thank you doesn't roll off of our lips every day, but I want to thank you on behalf of council for your work in this matter. Dr. Williamson, if you want to come forward, I think that could be appropriate to make some remarks, and then I will be happy, or we will open the floor up for comments and or questions of Mr. Williamson or other folks gathered here today. Yes.
Just would also like to point out the representation from the school board, Ms. Elizabeth Dorr, representing the 1st District, and Ms. Nadine Marsh Carter, representing the 7th District, who's not able to be here today. But thank you on behalf of the board for your willingness.
Thank you, President Hilbert, Paige, Mayor Stoney. Thad Williamson, the Senior Policy Advisor for Opportunity to Mayor Stoney. I'll try to be very brief and just set the table for what I hope is a great discussion among each of you. And let me add my thanks to each of the others who worked very intensively on the compact process, as well as the members of the public who participated in one way or another in weighing in on this. Just super quick backdrop, I think there are really 2 core ideas that necessitate this compact process. First is the depth of the challenges that Richmond Public Schools face in our context of extraordinarily high levels of child poverty and related issues require that we take an approach that combines efforts inside the classroom and outside the classroom, focusing on the whole child. And that requires RPS and a variety of city agencies and others to work together constructively. The second is simply that the way our local government is structured can, if we're not intentional about it, lead to unnecessary conflict rather than progress on shared goals. And so, as we set on this process, just to reiterate the mayor said and be very, very clear, that we take as a starting point the defined responsibilities of each body. The school board sets the school policy, establishes the strategies for academic improvement, oversees the school administration, and makes the funding request based on defined needs. That the mayor oversees the administration of city agencies touching the lives of children and families, makes budgetary recommendations through the introduced budget for investments in both the school system and in those agencies and other partners working with children and families. And lastly, Richmond City Council acts as the ultimate authority for approving funding plans for both the local portion of RPS and for the city agencies. So already there has to be cooperation. This is an attempt to do cooperation more effectively than the past. It's intended to establish a process by which the needs of schools and children receive attention on a year-round basis, not just at budget time. It's designed to multiply the opportunity school board has to communicate the needs of the schools to the local funding authority, the city council. And it's designed to ensure the city council has a clearer understanding of the rationale of the funding request made by both the schools and other city agencies. It's also designed to be sure we're paying attention and working together on the needs of the whole child inside and outside the classroom. Lastly, but very significantly, it's designed to give RPS and the community stakeholders as well a seat at the table when we have serious discussions about funding on both the capital side and the operating side, so that we can work towards progress on our most urgent challenges in both those areas. So as you know, we took the initial draft compact framework into the community through a series of public meetings, received a lot of helpful feedback. We have incorporated much of that into this draft. It's still a draft and it's still open to tweaks, adjustments based on suggestions from each of you and further feedback we received from the community. So much has taken place already. And so just be sure this is a living document, but I do think the basic framework is quite solid and committed to your discussion. So 3 key points: the commitment to meet together on a quarterly basis over the rest of this term. And I think this is significant simply because it's a public commitment that even when the conversation gets tough, which it will, the process has to continue. And the commitment to collaboration has to continue. And again, those meetings will focus on areas of mutual interest with respect to the needs of families. Second, skipping to the third point, is the establishment of a local children's cabinet. And this is, of course, modeled after what has been done at the state level for a couple of years, but a more, and building on some efforts already taking place with the city, but to build a more formalized process where those key agencies in human services, social services, Parks and Rec, library, community vault building, sit down with counterparts in RPS who are touching literally the same families so they can do share work, better work together and identify opportunities to make progress. The third component is development of an education compact team consisting of representatives from school board, from city council, the superintendent, and his or her designated staff, the mayor and the mayor's designated staff, as well as community stakeholders, philanthropic community, business community, parents, teachers. And really, I think there has been a need for clarity to define what that group will do. It's not setting school policy, it's not setting city policy. It's together exploring recommendations on things that require city, school board, and the mayor to all be in sync to be successful. And the biggest two issues at this time would be a real solution on facilities funding and a real solution on a long-term operating funding so the RPS has the security to be able to plan to move its plans forward, knowing that there would be a certain level of resources available. And the third, and I think this would be mostly done with input from professionals, but with this compact team at the table as well, is to work towards a shared progress and accountability matrix so that as time goes on, we understand what everyone is attempting to do and can measure progress accordingly. So that is really the gist of the compact. It's a attempt to institutionalize collaboration towards those shared goals of improving kids' lives inside and outside the classroom. We need a lot of help to improve the academic situation, and we need a lot of help to reduce child poverty, address everything else that's going on with kids' lives. So I'll leave it at that. I hope that's clear enough, and certainly look forward to a discussion. And I'm available if needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williamson. Are there comments, questions from members here that are gathered? It says statements from anyone and or questions for Dr. Williamson. Yes, Mr. Agelasto.
Thank you. I guess I'm the one that's particularly very excited for council anyways. First, I appreciate the opportunity for the two bodies to get together. When we did this formally, one thing that might be helpful in the future is to, I think, gavel in both bodies. I know it's a council meeting to which the school board here has been invited, but in previous times, both the school board gavelled in its own meeting and its council gavelled in its own meeting, so that they really were formal meetings. Right now it's just a city council meeting, so that might be one minor suggestion of how we do the meetings. But I think getting them on the calendar and certainly scheduling them, at least for the duration of our terms, which will be for the next 3.5 years, I think we'll commit that long-term schedule for meeting. I fully support that. On the two other recommendations that have come forth, and I appreciate the work that the compact teams have done, there are some things that I'd like to understand a little bit better. One is, how are we going to address potentially geographic diversity in the city and the difference that we have from certain schools that, frankly, right now, we know it's a zip code-based education system. We got the East End schools, we got Southside schools. They're very different in some regards from a socioeconomic standpoint. So how do we make sure that there's diversity represented? And to that element, I'd like to understand how the community better engages in the process. I can understand that the school board is going to appoint 2 members to a team, and the council is going to appoint 2 members to a team, and the mayor is going to appoint some members to the team. But how do we get the general public more engaged and who makes a determination that they are qualified members for the team. I think that would help a lot, and as it relates to the children's captain as well, so that we can make sure that various perspectives are at the table. I would like to understand that. What resources are going to need to be set aside to support the team, to make sure that they can accomplish their goals, so that they can set forth recommendations to both bodies that we could act on. They may need resources, and I don't know what resources they may need, but it would be helpful to establish some budget and to make sure that there were funding available if the team felt that such funding was needed. So we want to make sure that we understood that. And then lastly, I think as we talk about a team coming together and making recommendations and setting forth whether policy changes or other, it may be very helpful to try to put a timeline towards, okay, we're going to meet for the first 3 times and then these are our priorities. We're going to identify the priorities of what the team's going to focus on. That's going to be a measurable goal and deliverable. But I think it would be helpful to start with a timeline that set everybody on a path that we knew what to expect by when from the team, so that it didn't get on tangents, that it didn't go into the weeds too far in a particular area and get so entangled that it can't find its way out. So I think those few items would be very helpful if we can flesh that out. And preferably try to put it into the draft resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Agelasto, and I can vouch for those who have never seen a city council meeting that you do usually break the ice. So thank you for.
He's always that guy at the party.
That's right. Yeah, but thank you for those excellent questions. And would either Mr. Williamson, Mr. Mayor, like to answer some of those?
Well, I was going to add to Councilman Agelasto that I do agree with the. I like your sensitivity to geography. I think that's key, particularly on the compact team. If we can do anything to flesh that out in black and white, I think that'd be actually good for this document, right? The individuals, whether they're parents and teachers, where they are representing throughout the city, I think is key. I think what we can do a little bit more of before we make this ready for prime time is kind of flesh out what we some more descriptions for those citizen and teacher seats, basically parent seats, of what we're looking for, whether it's location, geography, or maybe even expertise as well, or secondary, elementary, that as well. Fleshing that a little bit more, being more specific, can be very, very helpful to this, strengthening this document. Dr. Williamson, you want to add anything else?
Okay.
Yes, Ms. Gray and then Vice President Newville. I'm sorry.
Yes, individuals are speaking to
Okay, thank you. Thank you. If everyone could speak into the mic here so everyone could hear you here at the back of the room can't hear us. So, Ms. Gray.
Okay, I just wanted to state my concerns for the record. I think I've spoken directly with individuals around the table about my concerns of what I've seen and heard and what I haven't seen and heard. We talk about parental participation, but we're meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a weekday. As a parent, those initial meetings were closed doors, so a very engaged public servant as a parent didn't have participation in the initial draft or conversations around the compact, or just to sit in the room and hear that. But further, my concerns are, I think the most glaring thing that's missing from this room and table is the superintendent. And I think that having that leader in place is key to moving any district forward. That's the most important thing that a school board in my opinion, for my term on the school board. And I think that's the most important decision a school board makes, is selecting the school leader and letting that individual set the stage and the tone and the culture for how to move the district forward. So I think that is key before we start making decisions on what metrics and what the strategy will be. I think having a superintendent in place is the most respectful way to move with us. I know there's been a lot of talk about this not being a push for charters or privatization, but when I attended the public meeting in the 2nd district, there was a reference to this having been patterned after Miami and Denver. And in those school districts, there was a push after the compacts were put in place for charters and privatization. And those results have been pretty dismal in those districts when compared to the traditional school system. So I do want those concerns stated for the record. I do commend the efforts. I think we all should be coming together. Kristen and I initiated the first joint meetings when we closed out with the facilities task force, and we presented it to the full city council body. So I think it's important for us to come together in the name of our children. However, I don't think that setting the academic matrix in place before we install a superintendent, or before the school board installs a superintendent, would be wise.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Vice President Newbill. Sir.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gray, for that comment. That sentiment has been shared with the mayor and his team members that are planning, that have been working on the beginning stages of the Education Compact. As I just stated, we have shared that explicitly, that we need to pause, because we do have to make sure the superintendent is in place before we delve too deep when we start talking about measurable objectives for the schools. So I think that has been well received, and so and I guess as Mr. Williamson said, this is a working document.
And I'd like to add, Mr. President, that here today, the document that lies before you is all a framework. There's no metrics here, no measurements here. All it is a framework. I think that whoever that transformational education leader would be, they would be stepping into an environment of togetherness and collaboration between bodies that in the traditional sense have not worked together. I think in itself, that is, that's a way to recruit a top-notch executive for any sort of school organization, to show them that we are willing to put it all on the line for you, whoever he or she may be, to come in here and change the lives of each and every child in this school district. I think that's key. I think that's key. I think at the end of the day, the school board will present a strategic plan that will be all obviously blessed by the superintendent on the direction and the future of Richmond Public Schools. This right here is a commitment to a shared vision to put children first inside the classroom and outside.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Vice President Newbill.
Thank you. Again, well, I don't, just in case I didn't say it before, I want to thank the mayor for your efforts in establishing the Education Compact. These are indeed our children, every single one of them, and they deserve the best possible education, period, end of paragraph. And so while I absolutely hear and have heard the sentiment relative to bringing on the superintendent, and I think that's important. It isn't either or, it's both and. We work feverishly to get the best superintendent administrator. At the same time, there are things we can work on. I can tell you where the worst physical plant is in the school's inventory by its own definition. I don't need to wait for that. I know the state of the facilities in general throughout, I don't need to wait for that. There are things that we can start on, and so that when our new superintendent is here, along with school board, along with the mayor's office, along with council, along with that entire partnership configuration that's inclusive, that's representative, that's cross-sector, are here, we're ready to go. This, for me, there's a sense of urgency here, not at the expense of not doing due diligence. We must do that. And so where the expertise is, a school board rep don't need to manage and administer school board rep. Council has its role, the mayor has it, and I'm clear about that. But at the end of the day, I'm also clear that these are our children, and I'm also clear that the current challenges confronting us require that those things that we can undertake now, in this moment, and there's several in the context of the compact, then we need to get underway with those. That does not exclude, as a matter of fact, I'm hoping the superintendent comes and will take a look at this and, hey, let's revise, refine, modify to whatever extent. But it is not either or at this point, given the magnitude of the challenge before us. There are indeed components that are embodied in this compact that we can get underway tomorrow, for example. And I do want to say that I felt such an urgency about how and when we would get this work started that I did ask for it. And I'm going back to Mr. Adelesco's comment. I did ask for a rough time frame. And so that may or may not want to share that, because this is not, we cannot wait. If we're talking about getting in front of some of the challenges and making sure schools have the resources to create centers of innovation. And I don't want to go on and on, but I feel strongly about that these are our children, they deserve the best. I'm committed to working towards that. It's not either or. I agree, excellent superintendent, but we also need an excellent plan of action with all the components. Many of those components we can get underway now. I'm sorry for being long on this, President, but that's it.
Thank you. There was no timer here like we have.
Sorry, 3 minutes.
So we're going to try again. Let's see. I'm sorry. I saw Mr. Jones first and then Mr. Barr.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say, especially having served on the initial compact team and having Dr. Betten as a part of those conversations, and basically just about all the conversations by which we all attended, I believe Dr. Betten pretty much saw this initial process just about to its completion. I can't tell you the attendance of every meeting. There's too much going on, but I still believe just about every meeting I was in, he was in as well. I do see the benefit of having a superintendent on board, but that's not my call to make. I think what we're doing here is of great benefit. I know when I campaigned, one of the things I talked about was working with my school board representative from the 9th district. That's key. That was something we campaigned on. We helped each other at the polls that day as well. And so I think this gathering and us sitting down to talk and to share ideas is important because we all assist each other. Schools help the city helps the schools, all the way around. And so for us to have regularly scheduled gatherings and times in which we talk formally, I believe that's important because I want to hear what the school board has to say. As well, I want to hear what the public has to say as well. Throughout the process, we wanted to make sure that there was transparency, that there is public input throughout the entire process, because I believe that is key as well. And again, and I'm glad Mr. Barlow was going to get the floor after me, because my next point was going to be, I want to hear from the school board. You know, I hear from my colleagues quite frequently, but I really would like to know how the school board feels about this process, and to get their input and their feedback, because a lot of what we're getting back isn't city council specific. A lot of the feedback is not directed towards us. So I would really love to hear, and I appreciate Madam Chair, but I would really love to hear where majority of the school board is on this, individually or collectively or whatever, because that's what this is about as well. Because again, I don't get a chance to see, I haven't seen Scott in a while. And so it's good to see you, man. But again, I mean, these are relationships that we have begun to build, and I appreciate their perspective. And so as it relates to the school board and how this works, I truly want to know where they sit. This is not a power grab by the mayor. This is not a power grab by council. We have enough stuff to do. Trust me, we do. And so I'm not looking to try and tell schools how to govern schools. When there's issues in the 9th district, I call my representative the same way other citizens do. And so I'm here as councilman of the 9th district to support Linda Olner. How can I, on the city council side, assist her in the job that she is trying to fulfill in the way of meeting her campaign promises and the mandate that she has as a school board member in general. So I will, Mr. President, give up whatever time I have. I know we only have 3 minutes, but I really want to hear from my colleagues on the school board. So thank you, sir.
Absolutely, and with that, Mr. Barlow.
Well, I'm delighted to be able to provide feedback, and I will assure you that as a school board member, particularly in the 2nd district, that I have not experienced a shortage of feedback when it comes to the impending compact decision, and a lot of that's pretty important feedback that we've been getting, and I do think that I need to echo Councilwoman Gray's concerns here that she's brought up. In particular, it's important for us to have an expert at the helm when we're making critical decisions about the future of our school district. It's important that we keep an eye out for some of the concerns that folks have brought up, such as related to the charterization or privatization of our schools. It's important to be on the lookout for mission creep and people overstepping their bounds or entities overstepping their bounds. And it's critical that for us to ensure that there's transparency and parental involvement and teacher involvement throughout this process. Now, I'm a contract lawyer. I've got a fairly boring job compared to a lot of you. But a lot of what I do is make sure that we're aware of certain risks and that we come up with ways to balance those risks and account for those risks. So although I do see some concerns here, I see a lot of potential upside with this compact too. And that's not something that I want to throw out. So what I have been speaking with the compact team about and with the mayor about is, and many of our community members have as well, is how we go about accounting for these types of risks. And I've been encouraged to see a lot of feedback incorporated already from activists who are very involved in the school district. This draft school board resolution looks different than the one than the compact documents did before, and I think that it's important for us to understand that this has to be a living document, and when we do have a professional at the helm, when we do have a full-term superintendent at the helm, we need to make sure that we're getting their feedback and the feedback from our teachers throughout the process. Even our Constitution is amendable, so I think that our compact certainly will be as an agreement between the bodies as well. So I just wanted to echo those concerns, but also suggest that I do think that there's a lot of value to us getting together at the table, and there's a lot of value to us finding resource opportunities to provide the resources that our schools need to really thrive. And we may be best positioned to do that as a team working together. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dorn.
Thank you, Mr. Barlow. Just taking it 30,000 feet for a second, I just wanted to offer my input on exactly why I think we need the compact. One, and these are three things that we know. One, we know that education is not a one-dimensional issue. We know that we need to, the best way that we can improve on transformational education change is by starting at prenatal and going all the way to workforce development. And that while RPS controls a lot of that, RPS does not control all of it. And so it really is a team effort. Two, we know that there has been limited communication between the two bodies, and this makes the school budgeting process challenging. I can speak from experience this January. I don't think we didn't have any full-fledged fights, but certainly there were times when we could have communicated better. There were times when we could have found ways to increase resources to the schools, and we didn't. There were times when we could have engaged the parents and teachers in our community to participate in the budgeting process, and we didn't. And so I think the Education Compact is a great framework to include all those stakeholders at the table. And then three, we know we have a great philanthropic and private sector that are funneling lots of resources to our schools, but oftentimes those resources are not necessarily aligned to exactly what our school priorities are. And again, my goal is to increase the efficacy of the resources and dollars that are going towards RPS. To that end, I think having a shared framework for the compact is extremely important, and I agree with those that believe, with Ms. Newbill specifically, that we can start with that framework right now, and that absolutely we should have Mr. Krantz involved in those discussions while he's at the helm as an interim superintendent. As Ms. Newbill said, I think everyone here can agree that we need to take action on facilities yesterday, and we don't necessarily need a new superintendent to start having those conversations about how we get real about facilities and how we fund the facilities improvement plan that the prior school board approved in September, October of last year. We've got a plan. I think we're pretty ready to go. Let's start talking about how we fund it and how we get real about that. And I don't think any of us want to delay and wait another year to take action for our kids. So that's just one example of something that we can work on right now while we're also searching for our great next superintendent. I also agree with Councilman Agelesto. I think there's some work to be done, and Mr. Barlow, I think there's some work to be done to make sure that we're incorporating community feedback. I do think it would be a good idea to flesh out the roles on the compact team a little bit more. Also just want to add to the list of potential changes, making sure that we're very explicit that compact meetings are public, that they're recorded, and that there are bilingual resources.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. I'll defer to the president. Yes, Ms. Owens.
I agree with a whole lot of what's been said here. I certainly had concerns with earlier drafts. I'm pleased with this one. It's written in here, they will be public meetings, and I know, and I've talked to some folks about, if you really want to take every single one of them, it means every single one of them has to be in a multimedia environment, which means usually City Hall, which is a horrible place for the public. So there's some things to be said both ways on that one. I am really excited about the Children's Cabinet. The health department has things going on that maybe social services doesn't know about. Social services has things going on that I'm thrilled the library is going to get invited. They're doing things about getting books in the hands of kids, so are other people. I love the idea that they're going to get together and say, well, we're doing this. Oh, we're doing this. Maybe together, you know, RPS has this book bus going out to the neighborhoods this summer. Is there a place for the libraries to be a part of that? Can they be working together? It seems to me there's so many people trying to help the children. Let's get them together and see if we can't make it more efficient, more effective, and help our children all the time. I don't know about prenatal, that's really close, but definitely.
Sounds great.
There's reasons, right?
Mr. Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the risk of being less than collegial or perhaps too blunt, but my colleagues by now know that I regularly take the risk. I have to address the proposal or concern that I've regularly heard pertinent to delay. And for the life of me, Mr. Mayor, I can't fully appreciate it and understand. Presupposes a few assumptions, I think. One, that their problems are not as great as they are as relates to RPS and mailman. Two, that candidly, we're gonna hire a Superman or a Superwoman that with a wave of a wand will be able to fix everything. And three, if I may say this, frankly, pertinent to metrics, past superintendents have done a heck of a good job on it. So I share that to say that I fully support adopting the compact now. Problems are too significant to do anything less than that. And frankly, like my colleague from the first district, I think that we have to begin, well, it's a long list, but one of the things that I'm particularly excited about working with this interim superintendent regards facilities and opportunity to consolidate schools and reinvest monies in our infrastructure, helping ourselves by the leveraging dollars that we already have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Spini.
I want to ask that, why are we here? Not just here now, but prior to November, everyone got here saying the same thing. Education. And because of that, isn't that really the potential basis of a collaboration, compact, or just a certain mindset?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure that everyone can hear you. And you're saying something important, so we do want to hear. Thank you.
The point is that, excuse me. The point is that we both identified that we have the same vision to educate the children of Richmond, one way or another, whether from the school board side, city council side, or the mayor side. That being said, that the beginning, in my estimation, for a collaboration or compact, whatever you want to call it, to have that group mentality, group thought toward education. I think that if we as individuals, as parents, elected officials, want to put ourselves in place of those parents and the students, then we will make the right decision for the right reasons. I think I'm the one with the most amount of children here.
I got your beat.
It's not me, I got that.
But I say that because my children are in RPS, and I will do everything that I can, not just for them, but for other children, and I think I've done that. I've started to do it. That was the main reason why I decided to run, was to do just that. And there will be naysayers, and they have every right to be, because they have questions. Questions need to be answered. And so, if you visit, not to put ourselves in other people's shoes, but also visit the facilities, so we can not just see the physical structure, but also the students, the teachers, all of that matters. I think sometimes, too often, we stay in our own little districts, we listen to just those that are, in our own neighborhoods, and not go out and visit the population that we're trying to, affect. It's not just one district, it's all of RPS. And in my estimation, we have lost that sense of urgency that we've been talking about. If it's your child, will you not have that sense of urgency? I think you will. I know I do.
Thank you. I did want to mention that City Council does have a meeting here. I don't want to cut off the discussion, but we do have a meeting that was supposed to start at 4. And I'm trying to start on time. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but I certainly welcome everyone's comments. And so, yes, Ms. Page. Yes.
Just want to make a brief statement to start the work of the compact. And most of you should be aware that Richmond Public Schools is in an agreement with Department of Education, a memorandum of understanding. And one of the corrective action plans is for the city to develop a funding plan for the CIP to maintain and renovate our schools. So if we are serious about doing the work, and Councilman Jones, you just stated, you want to hear feedback from the school board. That's our first assignment, because it's not what we want to do or would like to do, it's what we will do. A corrective action plan to develop a funding plan for the CIP budget. Thank you.
Ms. Cosby.
Thank you. I'll make it quick. I want you all to start your meeting relatively on time. But when the question is posed, why should we do this? I just have to think about the prayer vigil that was held last week, a young lady, Billy, and our kids, and I echo the sentiments of Councilwoman Newville, my colleague, Mr. Young, my colleague, Ms. Dorr. We are dealing with a sense of urgency when it comes to our children, and now is not the time for us to get territorial. Now is the time for us to work collaboratively. This is a work in progress, and we understand this. We understand it's a draft. And yes, I'm very excited about bringing on our superintendent. We have our interim superintendent right now who will help us as we flesh out some of these issues that we do have. I too am excited about the Children's Cabinet, Linda, because all too often RPS has worked in a silo. So we've had partners that have wanted to come and say, how can we help? What can we do? And there are many things that are happening, and everybody is doing everything, but we're not working together. And some of that, we're not sharing information. So we have the Boys and Girls Club that's working with RPS, and we say we want enrichment. Well, let's share some of our data so that we can have purposeful and meaningful outcomes. And to me, that's a critical part of this compact. When we are working with the city and we're talking about growing talent, well then RPS needs to know, well, what are some of the businesses that are coming here? How do we need to start to develop our kids? When we talk about being global, yes, but are there some things that we need to look at specifically to have an educated workforce here in the city that we can use to tout and to grow our city? So I'm very excited about this compact. I'm very excited about the spirit of it. I do understand that this is a work in progress, and yes, there are some things that we have to iron out and make sure that we have transparency, because that's what it's about. And the main feedback that I hear is that when you go to a prayer vigil and when you listen to some of the parents, when you hear the teachers talk about the stench of George Mason, people say, what are you going to do? Something's got to be done. So thank you very much for all the members who participated in this compact and to get us a draft, to get us a working document that we can develop and put timelines to and figure out what are going to be our priorities. What can we do now? And then what are some of the things that we have to hold off on? Quite frankly, we have to work on a strategic plan. There was a strategic plan 2010 to 2015. Nothing was ever done, and we have to develop one. So when we talk about academic matrices, that's what's going to drive those academic matrices. We have to get that done. We have to have a funding plan. These are some of the things that the state has said, in our MOU, things that you have to do. And our MOU is very serious. It is no less than 10 years that we will be under state oversight, and we have to have expedited results. We really do. So yes, we have to work with a sense of urgency. I think, to me, this is one of those first steps. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cosby. Ms. Larson, and then Ms. Mansur.
Thank you to everybody who's here today. And I appreciate all the input around the table. This meeting has a great tenor to it. We've had some joint meetings before, as Ms. Gray mentioned, and they were really long. We didn't necessarily walk out of the meetings feeling like we had gotten anything done. So this is a productive conversation, and I want, if we move forward with this agreement, I want all of our joint meetings to be productive. So that's one recommendation that I have is, I think as we enter, if we're going to meet 4 times a year, which is, we all have busy schedules, let's at least go into the meeting with some sort of, this is what we're getting to. Because when you get 19 elected folks in a room, a lot of things can happen.
No, or not.
With mics. I think one thing that came up was the academic metrics, which is so important. But as Ms. Cosby was just talking about the agreement with the state, I think we need to be careful. This compact team has to be careful and mindful to stay in their lane, because the school board hires the superintendent. The superintendent is the academic leader for the school system. So reports can come forward, but in terms of holding somebody accountable, that's the school board's job to hold the superintendent accountable for that work in the district. And I'm very mindful of that and would like this agreement to reflect that. Regarding public input, I think we could consider having, for the compact team meeting, some sort of routine public comment period for folks who come to the meeting. If it's not every meeting, maybe every other meeting or something like that, where I know folks are always open to pick up the phone and call you or email you, but there's something different about hearing a public comment in a public meeting where other people hear it as well and can digest it and then weave that into your meeting and the conversations that you're having. And then regarding privatizing the system, again, if you look at the role of the school board in the state law, charter schools can only be approved by the local school system. Contracts in the school system are approved by the school board. So I don't think this group should get into that discussion. And per state law, they would have no authority to do so. So I think I don't feel like that is what's happening here, and I don't think it could even happen per the law. And then the last thing I'll offer is the timeline. I think that's crucial, and I think we should weave that into this somewhere, because right now it's open-ended, and so we could not get recommendations for 4 years. So I think we need to tighten that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ventura.
I will keep it brief, but thank you for the opportunity. I echo a lot of the sentiments of my colleagues, both from the passion of perspective and the urgency. But I also want to add, I think we have an opportunity to send a strong message to our new superintendent, whoever he or she is, that we are ready for them as a city, that we are ready to work together, that we're coming to the table with our sleeves rolled up, and that we aren't expecting that they're going to come in and solve everything and have all the answers, but that we are ready to work with them, and we're looking forward to their leadership, and they are absolutely the academic leader, but we're here as a community to say, let's work together, come lead us, but we're ready to work with you. I think that's a great opportunity, and I'm excited about the compact in providing that for us. So thank you to all of you who worked on the compact, and for the opportunity to have this meeting together.
Thank you. Mr. Addison, I believe, number
Last
91.
Great,
Thank you. We got a couple big lapses, but
yes, of course.
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. I just have to say, I agree with the tone of this conversation has been most positive and supportive, and I think this is a great start to a conversation over a document that will be growing with us. I think we all have a lot of ideas, We all have a lot of needs, and I think looking at geographies, zip codes, all these differences across our entire city is part of how we look forward to making this biggest focus of our city. I think I said this during my campaign, I know it was echoed by all of you during your efforts too, was the best economic development investment we can make as a city is fixing public schools. And I think that's why it's such an important conversation. It's not just school board. They have a big role, but I think as Mayor Stoney started with his initial comments, it's everything else in the community around them. It's the libraries, it's the nonprofit organizations that are doing after-school activities. It's all this together. And until we bring them to the table and listen to them, hear them, and see where they are, but also see where they're not, and find ways in which we can elevate that opportunity and equity across our entire school system for all children at the same opportunities that we all want our children to have as well, is important. And I think this is the first step in that direction. I look forward to our next quarterly meetings, and I think this is a really strong step forward in taking care of what I think is our biggest need as a city. So I don't have anything else to add. You all provided a lot of the points I would have made myself. So ditto, and thank you all.
Thank you. I can state here that we've made some progress up here. Mayor Stoney and I have indicated, or I proposed this, that we're going to waive the parking regulations around City Hall while these meetings are happening, and I think that's that takes formal action of council. We'll certainly do that, but I put up some signs. We've done that before. Road work. This is more important than road work. We've heard, I believe, all concerns. I've tried to write those down, and we'll try and have an answer on those as quickly as possible. Any final comments? All right, thank you. Well, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.